Hi, I'm Matthew, here with the one, the only,
Big Save Ave.
Today, we're going to be talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs and what they can do moving forward.
So let's first talk about just the Maple Leafs in general. I mean, disappointment all around. I mean, what are you going to do? Here's a first-round exits for the 5 concurrent years of
Yes.
first-round exits for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And for the past 3 years, they've been favored to win the series. They outplayed the Bruins in 2019, but they couldn't. Lost Game 6 and 7, including Game 6 at home. I mean, you have to win one of those games.
Yeah, you do.
Lost to Columbus. You're the 8th seed, going against the 9th seed, playing around. You got to win that game. You're favored. You're going in. You just lay a dud, get shut out in Game 5 against Columbus. You got out-goalied by Joonas Korpisalo, and you just couldn't stop him. And I don't understand how. And then just now, 2021, Montreal Canadiens. You're the number 1 team in Canada. You're the most favorited team to go to the Cup final, and you can't get it done in the first round against a team that barely made the playoffs.
And you can't
We
get
were talking about the Flames maybe going on a run, beating the Vancouver Canucks 4 times and passing them. Like, this team wasn't supposed to do anything. People were saying Leafs in 4, and you can't get it done.
You can't get it done in Game 5, can't get it done in Game 6, and of course, the Leafs can never get it done in Game 7.
As soon as Jesperi Kotkaniemi got that puck past Jack Campbell off the deflection, I knew it was over. I just knew the Maple Leafs were not going to get it done in Game 7. Even at home, even with fans back in the building, I just knew they weren't going to get it done.
Not even Justin Williams could
Yeah,
save
not
the
even
Maple
Justin
Leafs.
Williams could save the Hurricanes in Game 7. So now we're going to talk about how I think would be a good plan to fix it. First off, you got to add some grit. People who are working their butts off the entire time. People like Zach Hyman. He was by far, if not for William Nylander, the best player for the Maple Leafs in the series as a forward. Jack Campbell was spectacular. Your defense was good enough. Rasmus Sandin, he struggled, but he's also a rookie. You sort of expect that. But you need more players that put more heart in to the game. I'm looking at Connor Garland. He's a RFA for the Coyotes. Works his tail off. Puts up the points. He was very good. He was the leading scorer in Arizona on a team that, if you look at their roster, they're not that good. But I mean, they finished barely out of the playoff spot. In fact, they were looking maybe they're going to knock the Blues out.
Yeah, they were looking like they really had a chance there.
I mean, everything fell apart for Arizona, as you guys know. But I mean, Connor Garland, if he can't get a contract done in Arizona, I'd send a first-round pick to get him. He's a huge asset to get. Can easily fit in your second line. Go with Tavares and Nylander, and I think he's better than Galchenyuk, who was on the top 6. Better than Nick Foligno. There's a lot of things you can do to fix his roster. I think you start with adding more heart, more players that want to play and want to play well. Because your top guys, Matthews, Marner, I mean, they're not showing the heart, like the wanting to play that I think you're looking for.
Isn't that what they were looking for in Wayne Simmons?
I mean, and Wayne Simmons wasn't the reason they lost the series. I mean, he's a 4th-line guy. I mean, he put up some points in Toronto, but you're not expecting him to put up 50 points a season either. That's what Connor Garland can bring you. I mean, he had 25-goal season this year or something like that. I think that was last year, his career high. I mean, in a 56-game season, he had 20 goals. He was very good in Arizona, and if you can put him with a guy like Tavares, instead, like, he's playing with Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller, and while those are 2 very good players, John Tavares and William Nylander are a completely different breed of player.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would be tough to bring in Connor Garland, because he's in Arizona. As long as he gets a contract done with the Leafs, assuming you can get it done, I mean, you have to have it happen. He'd be a huge asset for the Maple Leafs to bring in, and you might have to sacrifice getting Hyman back. If I wouldn't do that personally, but I mean, if you're gonna lose Frederik Andersen, which I would be shocked if you don't, considering they've got Jack Campbell now, and I think he looks to be a good starter. I wouldn't mind him as my starter right now. Getting Frederik Andersen off the books, I have to look at their cap friendly, but just getting more contracts off the books will help. And it's better bringing in a guy like Connor Garland, he'd be my favorite to bring in for the Leafs. as a top 6 forward.
Now, do the Leafs get rid of Marner?
It's tough. If you can get Jack Eichel, move Mitch Marner. If you cannot get a guy who you think has the chance to be a top 10 scorer in the league, don't move Mitch Marner. I wouldn't even consider it. You'd have to get either an insane amount of draft capital or a player on his status right now, like a Jack Eichel, or even a package of like Gaudreau and Monahan from Calgary. That's what you'd have to do for me to consider moving Mitch Marner. I mean, yes, he was bad in the playoffs. Let's not mince words. He wasn't good enough for making nearly $12 million off the cap. He was not close to good enough. But you're talking about the guy, he put up more points than Austin Matthews this year. He was 4th in the league in scoring. He outscored Nathan McKinnon this season. And you're talking about you want to trade him because, he got an over-the-glass penalty twice in the playoffs and only put up 1 point? Like, players sometimes don't put up points in the playoffs. It happens, especially when you're going up against a guy on the level of Carey Price.
Yeah. Carey Price was on another level in this playoffs.
Yes, he was. He was very good. In fact, he is the reason that the Canadiens won this series. But you also have to think, Jack Campbell, he put up, through the first 6 games, he put up better numbers than Carey Price. So you can't, if you're Leafs fans, you also can't blame Carey Price for your loss and being like, if it wasn't Carey Price, we win this series. Because if it was Jack Campbell, if the goalie switched for the first 6 games, you could make the argument that the Canadiens still win.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, if you're the Maple Leafs, just get a guy who puts in effort. You can see it in the players that have it. They wear their hearts out. They do their best that they can. They show that they want ice time. And when you can get a player like that, even if they don't have the talent of a superstar player, that's a guy you want on your team. So that's what I would do if I was the Maple Leafs. I would also look to re-sign Jason Spezza, maybe Zach Bogosian. Like, those players, they're good filler guys, 3rd-line defenseman, 4th-line center, Spezza. They're good players you can have, especially on the cheap contracts that they cost. If Bogosian says, I want a $3 million contract, no, don't.
It to him.
Yeah, give it to him because he's Zach Bogosian.
The $3 million contract. Take it away from Matthews or Marner or Nylander. Just
no, I mean,
Bogo for Norris.
Obviously, don't overpay
Bogo for Norris
for anybody stupid like that, and like someone that you don't need. But if you can get Bogosian on the same contract and Spezza on the same contract, there's no reason you shouldn't re-sign those guys. But guys like Galchenyuk, Foligno, even though you paid stuff to get Foligno, like that 1st-round pick, well, that looks bad. You could have got Taylor Hall instead.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't move those. I wouldn't re-sign those guys.
Yeah, they may be good, but they may not fit
their
their style. Or like what happened with Wayne Simmons kind of reminds me that he was playing after he got traded out of Philly, he went to New Jersey and Nashville, and he didn't seem to be doing too good there. Also in Buffalo, but then when he moved to the Leafs, he started to get.
Yeah, he put up really solid numbers with the Maple Leafs this season.
Different players play well in different styles, and it seems like
if you can get him on another really cheap deal, he's a good option. I wouldn't be distraught if I was a Maple Leafs fan and I lost Wayne Simmons, but if you can get him on another really cheap deal, I would be happy to bring him back.
As a Flyers fan, it's nice to see him doing good.
Yeah, good guy in Wayne Simmons.
Good job in Philly.
Back their defense. I mean, you've got prospects that you can bring up, so I wouldn't worry too heavily about bringing up or signing a defenseman next season in the offseason. I would try to bring in another forward to complement that top 6, because they've been looking for a guy to complement that top 6. It was Galchenyuk, Wayne Simmons was there for a while. You had Joe Thornton playing on your top line, and I think Hyman is a much better fit on that top line than Thornton. If Thornton doesn't retire, you could bring him back as a 4th-line guy again. You want to trade that Kerfoot contract this offseason as soon as possible. That $3 million cap hit, I mean, I don't think Kerfoot's a bad player, but it's going to be tough to have the cap space to keep him around, especially if because you need to sign a guy to fit in your top 6.
Yeah.
I don't care who it is. I mean, I would like to see it as a guy with a lot of grit, works hard, puts up the points.
Puts in the work, wants to win.
Yes,
wants to do.
Wants to win is the biggest thing you need in Toronto, because you need to change the mentality. The mentality is, we're losers in the playoffs. We can't get it done. You need to change that as soon as possible. I think a guy that he doesn't even have to win before. I mean, I'm saying Connor Garland. I'm a huge fan of his, but a guy like him doesn't even have to be as putting up as many points as Connor Garland. Even like a 40-point player, a point every other game player, could easily put up 70 points playing with in an 82-game season, playing with Tavares and Nylander. And if you can get a guy that puts in the effort game in and game out, they'll be unstoppable. The problem is that they don't get that from their top guys. And I know Tavares puts in the work. The problem is he got injured. You need players like that, because they're going to carry you when it matters. When your top guys go down, because your top guys will go down. They will have stretches where they don't play well. Everybody has it. You need those guys that can put in the effort and get the greasy goals to help your team when it counts.
Yeah. Now, do you think the Stars need to step up, or is it more of a, or is there more different changes that need to occur with the Leafs?
If it were me, I would not trade any of the big 4, and you have to keep Hyman. If you trade Marner to clear up cap space while still getting a good player back, then yes, you can do that. But I wouldn't move them. I don't see the reason to. They played bad in the playoffs. It happens. McDavid put up what? One goal. I see Oilers fans saying, "Oh, he's the worst player in the league."
I know he got 4 points in that one game.
Yeah, but only one goal. Or
Not
one
sure,
goal.
yeah, one goal.
I mean, you can complain that McDavid wasn't good enough because, I mean, with a team like the Oilers are built, McDavid wasn't good enough for them to win a series. But the problem in Toronto is that, and even the problem in Edmonton is that McDavid shouldn't have to be good enough. And he shouldn't have to put in 4 goals a game in order for you to win a series.
This is not
Marner,
the NBA. This is a team
it's
effort.
a team sport. Marner should not have to put up 7 points in 7 games for you to win a playoff series.
Yeah, the real.
And if you need him to, that is a sign that your depth is not good enough.
Yes, the best Stanley Cup champion teams are filled with depth and
Look
have
at
scoring every line.
Look at the Lightning. They gave up 2 first-round picks to bring in Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman are not superstar players. They're not.
They don't have to be.
They don't have to be. If they can put up a point each every 4 games, that's what they're there for. And they're not there to be the superstar players. And that's a problem with the Leafs. Their depth was not good enough this series either. And we talking about the Stars weren't good enough. Their depth wasn't good enough. Some of the depth was good. You got not Marner. Zach Hyman was good. Jason Spezza was good. I mean, who else was good?
Nobody. And
The defense and Campbell, you can say, were good. And I don't know what else you want to say, because the depth wasn't good enough either. And you can't only blame the Stars, because sometimes the Stars don't score. And the way you have to get around that is by depth. I mean, back to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Stamkos did not play. He played for 1 period last season, and they won the Stanley Cup without him. That shows that their team is good enough without their stars performing, because their stars was injured.
So.
Like this same thing as Tavares. If the Tampa Bay Lightning lost last year, they could have easily been like, Stamkos was hurt. That's why we lost.
Yes.
But they were able to get around it.
Yes, they were. And very dominantly, too. It
Yeah.
wasn't like they barely scraped by.
What, they lost 3 games, 5 games?
I believe
The
so.
series, the entire playoffs?
Yeah.
Which-
And then with the 8-2 win against the Islanders, like nothing about that
dominating
screams
performance.
close. Like they dominated without their captain, and that's something that the Leafs cannot do.
They lost Tavares. They lost the captain, and nobody else was good enough to replace him.
And you can't blame Tavares being out too, because the Leafs won their next 3 games without him.
Yes.
It wasn't his fault that they lost.
And it's not Corey Perry's fault for injuring him either.
Oh no, not at all.
Yes.
Not at all.
So in summary, I think to fix the Maple Leafs problem is bring in a guy who's tenacious, who works hard, and can still put up the points.
And who wants
And
to win.
Who wants to win. And if you can bring in a guy like that who can help the locker room and just help the entire franchise change the mindset,
That we can win.
and we will win this game. That's how you turn around the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's how they're finally going to win a playoff series. Because if they trade one of the top 4 for a guy who's not good enough to replace them, even if they brought in a guy who put up 3 points in the playoffs instead of Marner's 1, not changing anything. And Marner is a much better player than how he showed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And yes, he's going to have to prove that at some point, because that cap hit, you can't have him not show up every year in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But he deserves another chance because he led your team in points. He's earned it.
Yeah, now he just needs to prove it.
Yeah.
Prove
And
that he's still worthy of it.
Yeah. And if the Maple Leafs can do all of that, they will finally break the curse and win their first playoff series since 2004. I'm Big Save Ave.
I'm Matthew. Thanks for watching.